So for my birthday, Patty got me this blower. Kind of cool. I didn't have one. No, that's not true. I did. I had an electric one. It was only the length of like my extension cord. So like when you're blowing the grass after mowing, and I've never had one that was like battery operated. I thought, well, this is kind of cool, right? And so my birthday was the 13th. So just like just it hadn't even been 3 weeks now, right? 4 weeks. So in between there, I went looking for my hedge trimmers because Patty wanted me to take this and blow off the hedge trimmers, blow off the hedges that I would have trimmed, except I hate doing yard work. I just hate doing yard work. And so, but you know, there's enough times of your wife telling you to do something, right, guys, that you say, okay, here's the day I'm going to go do it. So the day I go to do it, I go looking for my hedge trimmers. I can't find them. I've got 2 son-in-laws that live in the area. And sometimes they ask, they always ask, not something like that. They always ask, and sometimes they have my stuff. So I called one of them and I said, hey, got my hedge trimmers? He's like, no, I don't. And I'm like, well, they don't have legs. I mean, so now I'm in a kerfuffle. So I call the other son-in-law, who rarely has any of my stuff. So, and he's like, oh yeah, I know exactly where they are. They're in the garage. And I'm like, okay. He said, you know, you need them? I'm like, no, because I'm on my way to Home Depot because I'm going to buy a bigger set of hedge trimmers. I said, I just want to know where they are at this point because I'm committed that I'm going to go spend money on a better set of hedge trimmers. So I'm there at Home Depot and I'm looking at hedge trimmers. And doggone it, if they don't have this blower thingy. Now, mind you, I didn't need a blower thingy because I got a blower thingy, right? But look at this thing. It is cool. And I mean, I'm looking at the new blower thingy going, I can justify in my head, I can honestly get there in a heartbeat why I need a more powerful blower thingy. For one thing, you see the bulletins flying? The other ones didn't even make them fly. This thing is so cool, right? So I had this one and I had a plug-in one. I got 2 at home, but this thing is way cooler. I mean, I can feel the power of this thing, and I'm thinking, I need to get this because this has got more power than this thing. I mean, seriously, if you were trying to sell, right? If you were a guy, which one would you want? You know what I'm trying to say here, right? And the extension cord one is gone. I mean, I'm just limited by what, 12, 15 feet, and it's like, no, we're done with that, right? Because I now can go to the end of my driveway. And I got this thing, and it's like, well, this feels cute to me. This feels like, this is going to sound offensive. I'm not going to say that, but this feels manly. Doesn't this feel manly? I mean, and it just got me, oh, and by the way, I did find a really cool hedge trimmer because these batteries, look at the size of these things. It also fits on my hedge trimmer. So in my brain, I'm walking around Home Depot going, okay, you came in for a hedge trimmer, all you really need is a hedge trimmer. You don't need a blower. And you know, they had really cool weed whips too. The kids got Patty a Black & Decker weed whip. It's really cute. It's lightweight, and it's like, doesn't really do squat. And they've got these manly weed whips, okay? And they all use the same battery. And I'm thinking, well, if I've got to get the battery, I should get the weed whip and the mower and the hedge trimmer. Because the power here is just incredible what you can do with these things. And then, so anyways, did I not do the hedges? I did the hedges,
and
right?
To be fair,
yeah.
I didn't ask for the equipment because I was ready to do them.
I know, she was.
I don't mind.
There's some marital advice there, guys. If you wait long enough, I'm just saying, if you wait long enough, you know, look at the women are all looking at their guys. Really? You guys, no, strategic. You just got to wait long enough. All right. I want to talk today about power. I want to talk to you about power outages, right? Samson. If I throw Samson out at you, the person, the guy of Samson, what comes to mind? What do you think of when you think of Samson? You probably think of Samson and Delilah. That's what, that's the biblical record. He went in with a prostitute and she, seduces him, but he cuts off his hair and he ends up in slavery and they make a fool of the guy. I think the other thing that probably many people think of with Samson is his brute strength, though. The dude was strong, and we love power, right? You love power. Now, what is power, though? Because there's a lot of different kinds. There's the power that I've got with my machines. I was thinking this week, there's power lifting, not just lifting, but power lifting, right? There's power boats. I was on 70 last night coming home in my CRV. I'm in the middle lane. I'm doing 70, and a Corvette blows by me. And I thought, wow, that's cool, because there's a lot of guys who are like the power of a Corvette, of a sports car, of like, whoa, man. I'm just curious, am I the only one that, like, when you go to buy a vehicle, one of the things you want to do is get it out in the interstate and punch it? Like, how fast is it going to go, right? Why? Why do you want, all I need to do is be able to pass somebody, but no, man, I'm going to floor that thing and see how long it takes to get up the cruising, because we love power. We love power in our politicians. Weak people don't tend to get elected. We want powerful people. We want people that convey strength. There's a lot of chatter right now in our nation. We're going to have a military parade. What's the purpose of the military parade? Besides his birthday, okay? Which no one says it is, but he says it is. The purpose of the military parade is to show power, to show strength, to look at our military, because this is a picture of how strong we are as a nation. We love power. What is power? Just think about that for a second. What is power? If I asked you to define power, what would you say? I looked it up because I wasn't really sure. It's the desire to control. It's the desire to have control. Power is maybe the desire to protect those you love, those you care about. You want the strength to be able to, like, if trouble comes, to save people from trouble. You want that kind of power. We would say weak people can't do that, right? Only strong people can do that. Only strong people stand up to bullies. Weak people give in to bullies. That's just what happens, and so we admire those with strength. And what was the third? The third thing is that we want the power is the ability to influence other people, is to cause other people to maybe think or act differently because of what? Our words, what we do, what we bring to the party. We can maybe make people's lives better. We can influence them. What causes us to lose power? In the natural realm, what causes things to lose power? The church lost power 2 weeks ago because of a storm. When the storms came through, the neighbor's tree was uprooted by the winds. The winds blew the tree onto the power lines that snapped everything from Osman on up to Stump Road. So you saw it on the news. All the power went down because of the storm, because of winds that you can't see and you can't harness, knocked over a tree, which you could never do, and took out a dozen power lines. They're not, the lines are all in one, but the poles. That's powerful. What else causes power outages? Animals. Some of you remember a few years back now, we came into church on a Sunday. Only half the building had power. Anybody around that remembers that? And we couldn't figure it out, right? And you know what it was? Turns out a squirrel or a bird or something had gotten up in the power line. It didn't make it. The animal, PETA, I'm sorry, but the animal didn't make it. I didn't cause it, right? But that animal knocked out power to half our building. Okay? Something as simple as that. You all know natural disasters, storms, rains, floods, knock out power. They leave you powerless. Anybody like to be without power? How many of you have generators? I'm just sort of curious. Anybody here have a generator? Generators do. Generators are those little machines that when you lose power, you can fire that thing up and plug your house into it so that you still have then power. You don't like to lose power. You don't like to lose power over your fridge. You don't like to lose power in your house. You don't like to feel out of control. When you feel out of control because of the circumstances of life, you feel powerless. Samson was a guy that had all kinds of brute strength, but in the end, he was really powerless. He had a power outage. And so what I'd like to do today with this last story of the unlikely heroes is remind us of what are the things. I was going to spin this in a positive way. Hey, what do we need to do to have power? But I thought, you know what? We need the negative warning. We need to see the negatives in his life, because sometimes we can learn more from let's just say a bad example than we could trying to Pollyanna something. And Samson's story is one that's loaded with, I think, principles or illustrations of things that if we go down this path and you wonder why you're going to feel powerless in life, you're going to feel disconnected from God, you're going to feel like God's power has somehow escaped you, it's not a mystery. The stuff is here. And Samson is like, at least one of the exhibits of a guy who's like, boom. And yeah, here's the interesting thing to me. He's featured in Hebrews 11 as one of the heroes of faith. He makes it in the Hall of Fame. With all his flaws, he gets there. Which to me, as I want to show us at the end, is a great encouragement of the God that we serve. Okay? So, if you have your Bible, open at the Old Testament book of Judges. His story is found in Judges 13 through 16. Things that rob us of power. Things that sap our power. Grief. Addictions. Trauma. Abuse. Neglect. I wrote down something else that saps of our power is when we feel like we're living with shame. We can't shake the feelings, the thoughts of something we did. We're embarrassed by it. We feel guilty by it. That sucks power from you. And then, as I've already alluded to, when you feel just like you just don't have control. You could be in a marriage and you feel like you don't have control. Your kids could be getting to the age where you feel like you just don't have control of your kids. You could be at work and all around you and you feel like, man, my job, I thought I was good, and now I feel like a loss of control. You know what I want to do today? I just want to do a shout out to my wife. Patty has been with her company in Michigan for 40 years. 40 years, the same place. That never happens anymore. And some of you know all too well, it's like, man, I just don't feel like I've got control over even my job, like what I'm doing. Some of you are going off to college and you're going to feel like, I'm just not sure. I don't feel like I've got the control that I had as a senior. Man, everything revolved around me, and now I'm going back down the bottom of the pecking order. How do we avoid power outages? All right? Samson is, as I said to you, his story is in Judges 13 through 16. In Judges 13, we basically have his birth. He's born, as you see here, to a guy. His dad's name is, verse 2, a certain man of Zorah named Manoah from the clan of the Danites had a wife who was sterile and remained childless. His wife, Manoah's wife, is never named. Samson's mom is never named. We don't know who she is. But this couple, what we do know about them is they wanted children and couldn't have them. Talk about feeling powerless. Why was it a big deal to have children? Because even more so in this culture, your kids took care of you as parents. Your kids were your inheritance in this culture. And so not only do you have there's lack of what's going to happen, but you're trying to have a baby and you can't have a baby. You feel embarrassed about that. Like, what kind of woman can't have a baby? Every woman has children, right? Right? That's sort of a common thing, right? Except ask any woman who has trouble conceiving the embarrassment that she feels by that. Where did that come from? That's this couple. And so it says here in the text that an angel of God comes and visits them and says, you're going to have a baby. And we read in the text that verse 6, the woman went to her husband and told her, a man of God came to me, and he looked like an angel of God. He was very awesome. I didn't ask him where he came from, and he didn't tell me his name, but he said, you're going to conceive and give birth to a son. So don't drink any wine, and don't have anything unclean, which would be anything dead, because the boy will be a Nazarite of God from birth until the day of his death. And so the husband says, well, who is this guy? And he begins to pray, hey, if this is real, will you come back? And so we see here that verse 8, he prayed, oh Lord, I beg you, let the man of God come and teach us again. God heard Manoah, and the angel of God came out to the woman again, came to the woman a second time. And so she says, hey, will you hang on? I need to go get my husband. I mean, he's not going to believe you back. Would you mind just chilling? Will you just? And okay. So it goes and gets Manoah, and he shows up, and the angel gives the same prophecy. You're going to have a child. And don't cut his hair, and don't drink of the vine, and don't let him play with dead things, all right? He's going to be dedicated to God. And so this is Samson's birth story. We read here that then, look at Manoah says in verse 22, we're doomed to die, for we have seen God. And his wife answered, if the Lord meant to kill us, would he have promised us a son? Hey, you're not thinking straight here, right? This is cool. The woman gave birth to a boy and named him Samson. Verse 24, he grew and the Lord blessed him. God was with him from birth. The Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him while he was in Manaah Dan between Zor and Es. Just tells us geographically where he was. The angel of the Lord appeared to him, said, you're going to have a son. Don't drink wine. Don't cut his hair. He's going to be the one that's going to save your people. One of the interesting things I read here was Israel had again fallen into this pattern where they were rejecting God, and in every other story we had seen, they had asked God for help. You know what's different in this story? There's no mention they'd ask God for help. Side note, I'm not going down the rabbit trail. Side note, there can come a spot in your life where when you keep rebelling against God, everybody thinks, well, I'll just come back, I'll come back. I think it's entirely possible when you keep rebelling against God, there comes a spot in your heart where you're like, I don't want to mess with it anymore. I don't want to mess with it anymore. And so you don't ask for help. The people didn't ask God for help. But God in his graciousness said, I'm sending you a deliverer. All the while the people are messed up with the Philistines, God is preparing Samson. Who are the Philistines? Nasty people. Man, when I read about nasty things that happen in the paper, I see it on the news, I see it on my website, see how people treat people. These people were worse. You're going to see here in a moment that they got what they wanted out of a woman that was one of their own, and then they burned her and her family. They were barbaric, all right? And this was the people that was over Israel at the time. And God is raising up Samson. It's going to like, hey, we're going to knock these people. And it just seems so far-fetched. I read the headlines today and I think, man, how did we get where we are? Can God do anything? Because it just feels like, we're sending the troops into LA now. We've gotten that spot. We're sending National Guard out. We're threatening to call the Marines in. Is this where we're headed as a country? Are we just like, is this just it? Can God do anything about that? Can he make the world better? Because it just doesn't look good. This was them. And God was working behind the scenes, but they wouldn't have known that. Okay? He had in chapter 14, Samson went down to Timnah. He saw there a young Philistine. Remember, he's an Israelite. So he sees somebody of the opposite team. I don't even know how to get there for us that we would really understand this. Just think of like, the best thing I was thinking of this. So how many of you remember, were there any occasions when you were going to high school that someone started dating somebody from the rival high school? That's sort of awkward, isn't it? It's like, it's like when I see people at a Cardinals game and like, he's got a Cardinal shirt and she's got a Cubs jersey on. And I know there's a Cubs fan here, all right? I get it. But aren't there are things that make you go, wow, how's that working out for you? So Samson is going and he's looking somewhere else. And we read here, he sees this woman. He says, I've seen a Philistine woman. Now go get her for me as my wife. That's what he says to his dad, Mom and Dad, verse 3 said, isn't there someone good among our own women? You got to go over there? And he's like, nah, go get her for me. She's the right one. So the Spirit of the Lord came upon him. He tore a lion apart with his hands. He didn't tell his father and his mother what he had done. Why didn't he tell them? Why didn't he tell them? He wasn't supposed to touch dead things. That's part of his background. He had no business doing that. You don't tell things that you're not proud of. You keep those things secret. He's keeping it a secret. He marries this woman. They have a keg party. You get everybody there. It ends up being a disaster. He gives a riddle. The wife is embarrassed because he's the only one who knows the answer. Tell us the riddle. Look at verse 14. Let's hear it. He replied, out of the eater, something to eat, out of the strong, something sweet. For 3 days, they couldn't give him an answer. On the fourth day, they said to Samson's wife, would you coax him into explaining the riddle for us, or we will burn you and your father's household to death? Did you invite us here to rob us? You're making sport of us? You're one of us. You figure out how to get the answer from your husband. So she did. Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power, and he struck down 30 of their men because they basically maligned his wife. Look at verse 20. And Samson's wife was given to the friend who had attended him at his wedding. He left. He burned in anger, and he left. And so the father-in-law said, well, he must be ticked off, so he gives his wife to the best man. Verse 15 says that sometimes later he goes back, he's going to claim his wife. And he said, the father wouldn't let him go in. Verse 1, I was so sure you thoroughly hated her, I gave her to your friend. What if you took her sister? What would that be like as a guy? Man, talk about dysfunctional. So this time I have to get even with the Philistines. Verse 3, I'm really going to do them harm. And he went out and he caught these foxes and he tied torches to their tails and he sent them off in their fields, which would have burned up their fields, which really would, think of just robbing their 401k. He would have just taken all their assets and burned them. And so they're like, whoa. When the Philistines asked who did this, verse 6, they were told Samson, the Timonite's son-in-law, because his wife was given to his friend. So the Philistines went up and burned her and her father to death. You mess with us, we'll mess with you. So what does Samson do now? Well, he just goes off. He attacks them, he slaughters them, and then he went and stayed in a rock, in a cave. Philistines went up, they camped near the people. They said, hey, you need to go get Samson or we're just going to run over you. So it says 3,000 men go up to get Samson. Samson, you got to come with us, man. It's not worth losing everybody for you. Will you just turn yourself in? And they're like, okay, sure. So he goes and they tie him up. And as he gets there, he breaks through the ropes and he beats them all up with the jawbone of a donkey. Boom, 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 kills them all. Samson led Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. He was their leader. Verse 16, though, one day he goes down to Gaza, which would have been the capital city of the enemy, where he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend the night with her. And the people of Gaza were told, Samson's in the city. Where's he staying? Delilah's house. Okay, let's go. Send a couple people over there. Delilah, you got to help us out. This guy's our enemy. Man, we've been looking for him. Can you just figure out what makes him so strong? And so 3 times, hey, can you just tell me? It's like, oh, if you do this, if you do that. The 4th time, she's like, you've been making a fool of me. You want this? You say you love me, but you won't talk to me. Where have I heard that before? You say you love me, but you won't talk to me. It's like, all right, well, if you cut my hair. So they cut his hair. And they bind him up. And he gets up thinking it's going to be like every other time. I'm going to burst through those ropes. Only this time, it says the Spirit of God, there's no power. And they take him captive. They cut out his eyes. They throw him in jail. and they mock him. When I read this about mocking, I thought of the number of times we've seen in the paper of when our soldiers get captive, and especially if they've been killed, they're paraded through the streets, they're dragged through the streets, they're made a public spectacle of to say, we are powerful. Look how powerful. That's what they did to Samson. So year 16, verse 21, the Philistines seized him. They gouged out his eyes. They took him down to Gaza. They put shackles on him. Verse 22 is interesting. It says, but the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. It's interesting. Just a little commentary. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to celebrate, saying, our God's given us Samson, our enemy, into our hands. And when the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, and the one who laid waste our land and killed our people, multiplied our slain. While they were in high spirits, they shouted, bring out Samson. Come on, we want to have a show. Bring out the strong man. And so they bring him out, and Samson said to the servant, little boy who was holding his hands, he said, will you put me so that I can feel the pillars that support the temple, so that I would lean against them? And the temple was crowded with men and women, and all the rulers of the Philistines were there. On the roof there was 3,000 of them, watching Samson perform. And Samson prayed one more time to the Lord, O sovereign Lord, remember me. O God, please strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get my revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. So he put out his arms, he knocks out the pillars, the temple collapses, and it read there that he died with the Philistines that day. His family, his brothers came and they got him, they took him home and they buried him. And he again ruled over Israel for 20 years. Some good, a whole lot of bad. What can we learn? Let me just give you a couple of things here. 5 actions. I think the first thing to keep in mind was he was ungrateful for his past. He was born by a proclamation of an angel of God. His parents weren't going to have children until God intervened. God did something miraculous with this boy. I believe his parents taught him that. I believe his parents did the best they could with him. But somewhere in there, he failed to appreciate his upbringing. He failed to appreciate what his parents had done for him. And I was struck with this thought that I want to leave you with, that I think when you are ungrateful, when I am ungrateful, when I become selfish, I lose something of power. I think there is something that is tremendously powerful about being a thankful person. I ask you many times, I will ask you again, why do you want to teach your children and grandchildren to be thankful? And if your answer is because, well, it's a proper thing to do, that's not enough. What is the reason you want your kids to be grateful people? Because grateful people have an appreciation for others. You can't be grateful and thankful without thinking about other people. Selfish people only think about themselves. Selfish. When your kids, your grandchildren are selfish, they're only thinking about themselves. When you only think about yourself, your world gets so small. The danger in being selfish is it becomes all about you. When it becomes all about you, that is very, very destructive, because it's all about making you happy. It's all about satisfying your desires. Grateful people have got their eyes up and they're looking at other people and saying, how can I bless? Because I've been blessed. Samson didn't see that. Samson said, hey, you know what? Look how strong I am. I just want that woman. I want to go kill a lion. I just want to do whatever I want to do. And this whole story is largely about Samson fulfilling what he wants to do. Very little mention of a gratefulness, zero mention. He's got 2 prayers in here, and both were self-centered prayers. One was for water, because he was extremely thirsty. The other was, will you help me exact revenge on my enemies? Those were his only 2 prayers, self-centered. he still works out that God says, hey, he's like a man of faith. But man, there's something in his life that just says, oh. Came across a quote by a guy that was on this topic of thankfulness and the why and the gratitude of it. Ralph Waldo Emerson said about gratitude, we need to cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you and to give thanks continuously. And why? Because gratitude improves your outlook on life. It increases your happiness. It enhances your self-control. It contributes to you feeling better about yourself if you're grateful. Because you're just mindful that others have contributed to where you are. Grateful people at work, I believe, excel. Because you're mindful that you didn't get where you are except for some other people helping you. And in turn, you know what that does? It makes you want to help other people succeed as well. Selfish people just say, I got here by my own smarts, my own strength, my own power. I got this job. I'm the best one in this job. And you're not thinking about other people. Selfish people in a marriage destroy the marriage because it's all about you. It's about you being happy. And when you're not happy, you let other people know. Grateful people in a marriage look at what the other person is doing and acknowledge that. This is not rocket science. Yes, Samson failed to get it. The second thing that I noted, the second action was he just wouldn't listen to people. He says, hey, I want this woman. And his mom and dad are like, whoa, can we talk about this a little bit? Is this really the right thing to do? Dad says in 14, aren't there some women among our own relatives? Do you have to go to the Philistines to get a wife? And he's like, I don't want to listen to you. This is what I want. She's lovely. Let me go. Man, I think one of the worst characteristics you can have as a person, and I mean this, the worst, is that you don't listen, that you are unteachable, that you feel like you're the be-all, end-all. How do I spot unteachable people? I think there's a couple of ways. Unteachable people don't ask for advice. You don't go. You don't ask opinions. You don't ask for people's input. You're not looking for any kind of maybe you sit down on the laptop and you maybe Google something, but you don't go talk to people. Why? Do you know why? I think one of the reasons is this. If they tell you something you don't want to hear, you got to deal with that. And what are you going to do if somebody tells you something you don't want to hear? So it's just better not to ask. You don't ask for help. You don't ask for someone's opinion. If you've got something you're a problem, you're not seeking someone's input. Hey, what do you think about? Hey, I'm really struggling with this. I remember one of the first times I did this, that it just really dawned on me. I had 4 children. They were all under the age of 5. And I to this day remember sitting in my bedroom and being, for the first time, genuinely scared. Scared? Scared of what? Well, scared because I was going to put my kindergartner on a bus and start sending him to school. See, when he was in the house, we controlled everything. You know what I'm saying? But now I'm going to put him out on a school bus. And I remember just being like, I won't have, and I remember saying this, I won't have control. I won't be able to control their every move. And what do I do with that? You know what I did with that in that time? I had a guy 10 years older than me that I leaned on. And I picked up the phone and I called Dave and I said, Dave, here's what I'm dealing with. How'd you get past it? And I listened. There are a lot of guys that are afraid. You've got fears and you've never talked to anybody about your fears because you're afraid that if you admit your fears, somehow that's going to make you weak. I've got news for you. I'm going to speak to you men. The fear's there. You not talking about it means nothing. It's not like, oh, suddenly you're strong because you didn't admit the fear. You've got the fear. You're compounding it because you won't seek help, because you just won't talk, because you don't have a friend, because you don't have somebody you can confide in. And I'm all across this audience, and I mean this in those watching online, I know there are people struggling with fears, and I know that there are people that maybe could come alongside and be a help if we would just open ourselves up to that. If we would just say, hey, I came across this I thought was interesting. Solomon talks about a couple ways that if you've grown up in the Bible, you realize that, Proverbs 12, Solomon said, a wise man listens to advice, but fools seem to do what's right in their own eyes. In 15:22, he said, our plans succeed with the advice of many counselors. There's wisdom in asking others. This is something I hadn't seen until this week, though. Have you seen that little piece that says, choose your heart? Have you ever come across that? Listen to this, because I think this is interesting. This person said marriage is hard, divorce is hard. Choose your heart. Obesity is hard. Being fit is hard. Choose your heart. Being in debt is hard. Being financially disciplined is hard. You're just going to choose your heart. Communication is hard, but not communicating is hard. Just choose your heart. Life will never be easy. It will always be hard, but you get to choose your heart. So choose wisely. I think, man, what that is a bit of wisdom, of listening to others who have maybe gone before and understand that, you know what, you think that the easy way out is just to go spend. I'm just going to spend to make me happy until the credit card comes in. And now you're always playing catch up. Choose your heart. Saying no and denying yourself, I'm not saying that's easy. I'm saying that's hard. Just which heart do you want? Are you teachable? Is there somebody you can go to and talk to? I'm not saying the world, but do you have somebody? Hey, the third thing that I noticed that Samson did here was he was impulsive. He just lacked self-control. He wanted a woman, so he went and got a woman. He saw the lion that he wasn't supposed to mess with. He went and killed it because he could. On his way back, that same lion, he's walking by it, and the bees have created a honey pot in there. So he just goes and he scoops up some honey because he can. He wasn't supposed to. Remember, he wasn't supposed to be around dead things. But he's like, I can do this. I can do this. Nothing's going to happen to me. The dude just lacked self-control. Paul told Timothy that we don't have a spirit of fear in us, but God has given us rather love, of power, and self-control. But we act like, I just, the devil made me do it. I just couldn't help myself. This was Samson. Friends, being willing to deny yourself, which is basically what self-control is the first step towards your maturing. And it has nothing to do with age. The fourth thing, he was just arrogant. And I believe I could sum it up this way, is that he didn't believe anything bad would ever happen to him. He believed that he could just trample over what God asked him to do and nothing, because I'm so strong. Nothing can stop me. It's not going to happen to me. They say that, I read this week, 27% of all accidents happen when people are texting and driving. Let that sink in for a second. Almost 30% of all accidents that happen when people are texting and driving. It's a third of them. Do you understand how preventable that is? But what do we think when you text and drive? What do you think? It's going to be somebody else. It's not going to happen to me. That's arrogance. That's all that is. That is prideful living. And both New Testament writers, James and Peter, said that God is opposed to the proud. He gives grace to the humble. Can I ask you a question? Why do you think pride is such a big deal? It's like one of the worst sins that we can do is to be arrogant. But why? Why pride? Why? Because at its core, it's about you thinking the world revolves around you. That's what arrogance is. You just are so filled with yourself And then if the world revolves around you, other people are out there for my pleasure. Behind every person engaged in lustful behavior and porn is an arrogant person. Because you think those other people exist to give you pleasure. You don't see them as people. You don't view them as people made in the image of God. You see yourself as having a need, and you want to fulfill that need through other people. And so you exploit them, and you use them. And it happens in dating relationships, and it happens online. It's all around us. But I want to remind you that at the core of it is you feeling like people owe you, like you're owed, like you deserve this. I wonder if that's how Samson felt, like he deserved this. Like, man, look at me. No one can stop me. I'm all powerful. And yet it was his arrogance, his pride that led to his downfall. Because then he goes into a prostitute. And she's like begging him. And she's like, all right, son, this is going to happen to me. Here, nobody's ever cut my hair. And so they cut his hair, and he got up like every other time thinking, I'm just going to bust out of this. But his power was gone. And I wonder how many people, your power with God is gone because you've played with sin, you've compromised, you've made it about you. When I was thinking of this, I said, a quote by a pastor said, pride always looks more powerful than humility on the outside. I thought that was interesting. Pride always looks more powerful than humility. Humble people look like they're weak people, don't they? You don't want to be humble, do you? Because humbleness is weakness, right? But he went on to say, that's not the case. In reality, it's not even close. Humility is stronger than pride, like heaven is stronger than hell. Like the cross is stronger than lust. Like the cross is stronger than you fill in the blank. Hey, here's the fifth thing that I think led to messing him up. He was isolated and alone. His countrymen turned on him. I wondered about that, why? His countrymen turned on him. Delilah turned on him. I love you. I love you. Man, we could build a life together. She's like, hey, just tell me like why you're so strong. Because I'm over here talking to these guys, but I'm not going to tell you that. Because then you might go away. At the end of the day, he's alone, humiliated, being made fun of. No power. I was studying this passage, and that verse in 16:22 came to me, but the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. I highlighted that in my Bible. You should too. It's not a very big verse, but it's interesting. What do you think it means? His hair began to grow again. So what? I was reading a writer who asked this question. As his hair began to grow again, why did the Philistines let it grow? They knew that was the secret to his power. Why didn't they keep his head shaved? Why did they let it grow again? Here's something to think about. I can't show you chapter and verse, but it's worth thinking about. I think because their God doesn't believe in second chances. I think their God believes in once you mess up, it's off with your head and we're done with you. I think that verse being in here was a reminder that God's grace continues on even after you and I mess up. So that if you find yourself this morning living a Samson kind of life without power, it's possible that God's not done with you. It's possible by the grace of God that he wants to continue to use you. Samson's hair begins to grow. I don't know, did he feel strong again? There's something in him that says, when he says to the boy, hey, will you put my hands between the pillars? Did he know? Did he in that moment cry out to God, God, would you give me the strength one more time? I'm not sure I have it in me, but God, if you would you let me deliver my people? There are some of us in here who are still humiliated, nursing wounds, and not being willing to be a hero for God's people and set them free. Has the hair on your head begun to grow yet? Is it possible you serve the God of a second chance or a third chance or a fourth chance? Is that what God's calling you and I to in this community with our friends, the people we rub shoulders with? There are people in our church that need rescuers, they need deliverers. There are some here that you're just like content, like, oh, I don't know. And I wonder why. Are you afraid? Are you afraid to step into a role? Are you afraid that you won't have answers? Are you afraid you won't be good enough? Are you afraid you won't know enough? Are you afraid you'll be embarrassed? I don't know. I know that God has filled this book cover to cover with people that were the most unlikely people to be used. That young lady right there had 8 at her study this past week, right, Donna? 8. And I remember Donna coming to me saying, hey, I think I want to do this lunch thing. I'm not sure anybody will show up. I don't know, right? And you had 8. 8 women just gathering for lunch once a month to talk. And Donna's there spearheading it. Emma, 3 years ago, Emma comes. I don't know. What if I do this thing for moms and no one shows up? No one shows up. That was your fear. What if no one shows up? And there were days there were 8 to 10 of them that were there. And she's going to step aside into a new role, but now we've got a hole for someone to step up and minister to young moms. It was already previously filled by someone who wasn't sure, I don't know if I can do this. I've never done this. We have student ministry holes. We have holes with college students, young adults. God can use you. Will you let him? Team's coming up. I want to leave you with what I thought was an interesting story. In a book called Hearts of Iron, Feet of Clay, the author tells the story. Let me just read it. He said, how did a guy who started out so well end up so poorly? How did a guy who had all that stuff at the beginning end up being made sport of and dying with the enemy? He said it's hard to understand. And the author tells the story about something unusual happened out on the West Coast about 15 years ago. They found 300 beach whales out on the coast that were dead, that had died. They had come in from the ocean, they got up on the beach, and then they couldn't get back out, and they died there. And so they were asking themselves, and this is interesting to me, trying to figure out, well, how does that happen? How do 300 large, powerful animals end up basically dying on the beach? And you know what one of the theories was? They were chasing sardines. Sardines, little fish, could get really right up there, right next to the beach. And the whale, this powerful animal, chasing these little bitty fish, end up killing themselves. And I thought, man, is that not like Samson? Powerful, big old strong dude. Had God like beginning God's promise, and he ends up with his eyes gouged out, dying with the enemy, and one last gasp, because he was chasing sardines. Things that don't matter. Could I encourage you a couple things? As you think about this summer, are you chasing sardines? Are you chasing things that don't matter? Are you putting your energy and your desires into things that you think are going to make you happy and they're just not? Could I encourage you to think about giving your life to Christ in a way that is meaningful and fulfilling as you seek to follow him? Could I ask you to think about that? So that you don't have all this like potential, wasted. Because God has gifted you, friends. By the grace of God, He is doing something in your heart, and you and I just got to respond to that. I want more power. I go to great lengths because I want more power. The power to forgive yourself. You can't lift enough barbells. The power to beat shame. You can't lift enough barbells. The power to overcome grief. Lifting weights ain't going to get it for you. It's only going to be found in the grace of God. As we follow Jesus and invite Him in and just kind of go where He leads us. And give ourselves to Him. Could I ask you here this week before Father's Day in June to think about that's what you'll do this summer. Just this summer. Would you give Him the summer? Let's stand.